This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the lab room.
10 minutes or less. Cleveland Browns. Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on this program, 10 minutes or less series, Cleveland Browns. Cue up the clock. Let's go. So, season rewind for the Cleveland Browns. Look, I could sit here and talk 30 minutes about this Cleveland Browns team last year and into this offseason. I want to gloss over this quickly because I got a lot to say about this Browns organization in 2014. So you look at 2013 and the Browns get off to an 0-2 start. And I was one of the guys that was saying, hey, let's wait and see on Brandon Weeden. You got Norv Turner in there as your offensive coordinator. I feel like Norv Turner is offensive coordinator gold. And so whatever he touches, it turns to gold. And so I just wanted to see him get his hands on Brandon Weeden. Maybe, just maybe, he'd be able to get the most out of Brandon Weeden. Okay, I was wrong. It didn't happen the way that I thought maybe it could. But one thing did happen. The emergence of Josh Gordon. Flash Gordon went nuts last season. Huge year for him. However, did not translate to win. So you look at the 0-2 start and you're thinking, okay, here goes the Cleveland Browns again. But Brandon Weeden goes down in that week 2 loss to the Ravens. And it seems like the sky opened up. And the football gods who normally don't smile down on the Cleveland Browns actually was smiling down on the Cleveland Browns. And he said, you know what? We'll give you an opportunity to do something that you don't do often. You'll win 3 games in a row. And what do you know? Billy Ho enters the lineup. Of course, I'm talking about Brian Hoyer. And he comes in and he stabilizes the quarterback position. They get a win against Minnesota on the road. He plays well. And they beat Cincinnati at home. And then they beat the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football. One problem. He goes down opening possession of that football game. Now, they still get the win, but nothing's the same after that. Now, they're 3-2 at this point. After 3 consecutive wins, you look up at the standings in the AFC North, and guess whose name is at the top? You guessed it, the Cleveland Browns. What's going on? How are the Browns going to handle the success of being in first place after 5 weeks of football? You know how they handled that success? Now look, they had to go back to Brandon Weeden and Jason Campbell. They handled that success by losing the next 3 out of 4 games right before their bye, lands them at 4-5 on the season, and then proceed to not win another football game thereafter. So there you have it, 4-12, Cleveland Browns. This is where all the fun takes place, okay? Now, they were competitive down the stretch. Some games that they probably should have won. They should have beat Jacksonville at home. They should have beat New England on the road. They had the Bears on the ropes. But when you're not a good team and you don't know how to close the show, you lose games at the end. So 4-12 for the Cleveland Browns. So now let's fast track back to the offseason 2014. This is where the Browns seem to have lost their minds. On the surface, it appears that they don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're scatterbrained. 2014 offseason. Immediately after the season, Rob Chizzinski is fired. Didn't he just get a contract last season? Wasn't he just made your head coach last season? You betcha. So that came as a shock to a lot of people. Maybe not a lot of people around the Browns organization, but definitely for us outsiders looking in, we were clueless there, okay? So that one kind of blew your mind. Then you say, okay, and this was my theory. I tried to rationalize it, and this is what crazy people try to do when a situation doesn't make sense. Crazy people try to rationalize things. because you want things to make sense. And I was being crazy because there's no rationalizing what the Cleveland Browns were doing, okay? So I tried to rationalize what the Browns were doing by, hey, they made the mistake of going out and getting the head coach first, and they didn't get the GM first, and it was backwards, and so they wanted to fix the problem that they made last year by going out and getting the head coach before the GM. They had Michael Lombardi in there. They felt like, hey, he's the GM. We want him to pick his head coach. Chizinski lost about 8 games straight, so maybe he lost the team. I don't think he lost the team. I just thought they had some bad breaks. But anyway, you look at it like this. I felt like, okay, they go out and get the right guy, then they're fine. So they bring in head coach Mike Pettin. I absolutely love him. I love the pick. I love the hire. I love Mike Pettin. You know how I feel about him. So I'm like, okay, they've got this thing figured out. And then a month later, Michael Lombardi and Joe Banner are fired. What? What? So you fire your GM and your executive? I'm lost now. I don't know what's going on. But then I see the guy that they replaced him with in Ray Farmer, and I'm like, that's a really good move. That's a hell of a football guy. So we got to move on is what we got to do. We'll talk Cleveland Browns football another day. I could talk for 30 minutes about this situation. I'll just say this. Laugh all you want, because I was one of the people laughing at the Cleveland Browns. All of these moves that they have made has made them a better organization. Now, they went about it the wrong way, but they're a better organization because of it. I'm just going to say that. Let's move on. So, you look at their free agents in 2014, and there's not a lot of them here. You look at this list: Willis McGahee, O'Neal Cousins, Sean Laval, Alex Mack, TJ Ward, and Billy Cundiff. None of them are restricted, so these are all guys that are unrestricted free agents. You look at this list, and for me, it's really simple. I mean, it really is. You want Sean Laval, Alex Mack, and TJ Ward back, and you want 2 out of the 3 back at any cost necessary. Okay, you've got close to $50 million worth of cap space. This is a young roster. I mean, the Browns are doing everything right in terms of the talent that they have acquired on this roster, the amount of money they have free under the cap, some of the moves that they've made, like drafting Josh Gordon in the supplemental draft. They've done a lot of things correctly in Cleveland. This roster is loaded. You just have to be smart about the way you go about approaching the draft and free agency. So if you're the Browns, you've got all this money that I just mentioned under the cap. There's no reason to not have Alex Mack, the secret world of Alex Mack, and TJ Ward back on your football team next year. Sean Laval needs to come back as well, because I feel like this offensive line is young, they're hungry, and they're really, really good. You got Schwartz and Thomas as your bookends at tackle. Laval, sometimes he's a little iffy, but I like Sean Laval. He's your stuff. I feel like you can bring him back. And so I think you've got something going on this offensive line. You need to bring Alex Mack back. I mean, he's one of the better centers in the National Football League. This is the thing. When you have so much uncertainty on your football team, guys don't want to stick around because they don't know what the future holds. And so when you start firing head coaches after 1 year, you start firing GMs and executives in the middle of the offseason, it just looks weird. It looks like it's unstable. And if I'm a player and I know I can go elsewhere and I'm already tired of losing, then I don't want to be back because everything just doesn't make sense in our organization. So you got to stabilize things and make these guys understand it. This is the direction we're going in. We're fine. And if you want to be on board, we're going to make this thing work. And so if you're the Browns, Alex Mack can't leave. If you're the Browns, TJ Ward can't leave. If you got to use the franchise tag on TJ Ward, so be it. He can't leave. You got to throw some money at Alex Mack. You got to keep your stuff. You got to keep Joe Hayden next year. You got to make sure you keep all of your young, talented stuff in-house. So you look at team needs for the Cleveland Browns, and it's simple once again. A lot of talent on this team. You need a running back. That running back by committee garbage that you did last year, over with. Get yourself a running back or 2. You look at the receiver position, I don't think you need any more receivers. You've got a lot of young stuff. We'll talk about that another time. Quarterback is a must. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it. Get yourself a quarterback in this year's draft. If not two of them, you need quarterback help. And it's going to be interesting to see what Billy Ho does off of the injury. But you definitely need a quarterback. You can't skip over that. You can't glaze over that. You need a quarterback. And get Brother Joe some help out there at the cornerback position, if you please. Go out in free agency. A lot of money to spend. A lot of good quality free agents out there. Get you some in the free agent market at the cornerback position. As you can see, my time is up. That's been the Cleveland Browns in 10 minutes or less.
10 minutes or less.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the lab